With the Rites of Spring event on progress, there is a 35% fame bonus on all activities. So, in consideration to that, there's a lot of people in the game currently trying to fame farm and level up their gear. In today's video, I will show you guys 4 best fame farms available in the game. Now in this video, the only fame farm I am not including is Roads of Avalon, as Roads of Avalon are very volatile. Sometimes you might wander around for hours without finding anything, and other times you'll find a bunch of really high value mobs making millions of silver per hour, or fame per hour in this case. But not including the roads, we have 4 other candidates for our video. Now let's see what these activities are. We have open world mobs, and in specific for open world mobs, I have tested tier 4 to tier 7 open world mobs. That includes tier 4, tier 5, tier 6 and tier 7. I calculated the fame per hour on each of these activities and will be going over that later. Now after open world mobs, we have statics, group dungeons, mists. Now these are the other activities. Now let's start off with my favorite activity for fame farming in the whole game, that is the static dungeons. For this content you want to solo static dungeons, and this will give you an approximation of 660, not 660, 660 is for the group dungeons, actually revealed that here. But if you do statics, you'll get 1.1 to 1.2 million fame per hour, and that is with the increased traffic from all of the people trying to fame farm. Now if you go there when the fame buff is not active, you'll still get fame comparable to this or even a little bit higher, because there's no competition whatsoever. Now for doing statics you will need an 8.3 set, and it's not very accessible to beginners. But if you have a access to 8.4 set that can clear statics, or even a 7.3 set that can clear statics, statics are your best option. Now after static dungeons we have solo group dungeons. Now as I accidentally revealed earlier, from solo group dungeons you got 668,000 fame per hour. Now this is not very high in terms of fame, but this is really good for silver. So the silver per hour in this activity is usually 1.5 million at the lowest, and it can go upwards of 2 to 2.5 million when you're lucky. So that's for solo group dungeons. Again, as for statics you need very high tier gear, and the gear requirements is really high for this one, so another non-beginner friendly method. Now after this though, we have a bunch of beginner friendly fame farms. The most beginner friendly fame farm in the video is tier 4 open world mobs. Now for open world mobs, all you have to do is go to a tier 4 zone and start killing everything you see. You don't have to think about anything, just go to a tier 4 zone and start blasting. The build is also not consequential. The better build you have, the more fame you get, but still you can use any build you have. In my testing I got 460,000 fame per hour, which is not very high compared to our other activities. It's one of the lowest in the list, but considering it's very good for beginners, I will add it in the list. Now after tier 4 open world mobs, we can move on to tier 5 open world mobs, which give you 848k fame per hour. Now that's more than double of tier 4 zones, or around the double area. But what makes this tier 5 zones very good is that you can bring 8.4 gear into a tier 5 zone and just speed clear everything in your area. So this increases the fame per hour really high. You can also use a cheap set if you don't have an 8.4 set, but yeah, this is an option. This is a very valid option. Now after tier 5 open world mobs, we have tier 6 open world mobs, which give you 882,000 fame per hour, which is just slightly more than tier 5 zones. Now the difference is so low because in tier 5 zones we used 8.4 gear and just speed ran the whole dungeon, but in tier 6 zones we can't afford to do that, because obviously there's a lot of risk involved in bringing tier 8.4 gear into a red zone. So for tier 6 open world mobs I used a cheap set, and the results were also comparably cheap. Now let's move on to tier 7 open world mobs. These are black zone dungeon mobs, so they are quite tough to kill, and there's a risk of going into the black zone inherently. But the fame per hour is really good. We have 1 million fame per hour from doing black zone open world mobs. Now this is one of the best activities to do if you are a intermediate player, not complete beginner. If you're a complete beginner, you probably don't have the tier 7 reaver required for killing black zone mobs. So that's it for the open world mobs. So after this we will move on to mists. Mist, just like Avalon dungeons, it depends on a lot of factors like the tier of the mist you get, the rarity of the mist you get, and whether the mist is in the safe zones or in the black zones. There's a lot of variations, so a generous estimation would be somewhere around 500k on the low end to 1 to 1.5 million on the high end. It depends on what type of mist you get, and it's very volatile, so I don't have any concrete proof on this. Now, as we discussed in the video earlier, we have Avalon roads. Again, very volatile content. You might spend 10 minutes in there and get a million, or you might spend an hour in there getting 200k. So yeah, there's that for fame farms. Now if you want to farm silver in this same fame farms, tier 7 open world mobs, tier 6 open world mobs, and soloing group dungeons are the best silver farms in the entire game for a solo player. Now if you are a beginner, go for tier 6 open world mobs. You can bring a 4.1 or a 5.1 set and you can clear those dungeons quite easily. But if you are slightly more experienced, you can move on to tier 7 open world mobs. You can do this either in red zones or black zones to increase your loot even further. This is a great silver farm if you are an intermediate player. But if you are a completely expert player who has 8.3 gear and completely solo, you can go to tier 5 group dungeons and start soloing them. Since all of your gear is already maxed out at this point, you really don't need fame from these activities. So soloing group dungeons is less fame than the other activities, but it has the best silver in the entire game. As I said earlier, it can give you 1.5 to 2 million silver easily. Now these are all activities not considering the bonuses you get from faction flagging. For zones like open world mob farming, statics, or group dungeons, you can get faction points, and these faction points will give you a bonus of 100k or 200k fame per hour easily. But this does not apply to the mists and Avalonian roads because you cannot faction flag in those areas. Now that's it for the fame farms. In my opinion, the best option is, if you're a complete beginner, go with tier 6 zones. If you're intermediate, go with tier 7 zones. If you're an expert, go with statics. This is the guide you have to follow in order to get best fame per your time. Alright guys, now let's move on to a giveaway. In this video, I'm going to be giving away like 1.5 million silver for a lucky viewer. To participate, all you have to do is subscribe to the channel, like, share, and comment your in-game name in the comment section. So yeah, that's it for the video. Consider becoming a channel member if you want to subscribe or support the channel. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.